Hello there, Homeschool Nolan here to help you navigate learning in the digital age. Today I'd like to talk to you about a good question that recently came up between me and a homeschooling parent. And that is, should my child learn how to code? And if so, when should they start learning how to code? Now, I myself work in tech, and I started my own career as a computer programmer writing code for a big tech company. But I actually hadn't thought about teaching my own oldest child, who is now 8, to learn how to code. The reason for this is that I've observed that there's a pretty strong correlation between people who are very good at math and have a strong aptitude for computer programming. For this reason, I've been emphasizing learning math first before getting into computers. But one of the parents in our homeschooling pod has noticed that a lot of other kids today, particularly in our area, have already begun to learn how to code and started taking classes on coding. I myself have noticed that in my own local neighborhood strip malls that coding schools for kids have been popping up. Kids learning how to code is definitely a real thing. So this got me asking again, should my child be learning how to code? Before answering, let's explore a couple reasons why anyone should learn how to code. First, coding is important because simply we live in a digital age. It's an age run by computer software. Software is, whether we like it or not, increasingly running our daily lives. They make recommendations on what we buy, what we watch, and what we read. They help organize our daily lives and are continually gathering data on us, whether we're aware of it or not. And they're using all this data to help shape the world we live in. Special software and algorithms for artificial intelligence and machine learning are also supposedly threatening to destroy many jobs while creating new ones. All this software is implemented by people who know how to write code. So if you know how to code, you can better understand and perhaps help build the digital world we live in. And it seems like a pretty safe bet as of now that as we look, say, 20 years into the future when our kids are all grown up, that computers and software will continue to play a dominant role in our daily lives. Now, even if you don't end up becoming a computer programmer, there's another good reason to learn how to code. And that is, it's a great discipline for teaching you how to solve problems in general. Coding is all about taking tools that are available to you and knowing how to use them to solve a problem. It trains you to think logically. Coding also trains you to use limited resources more efficiently. It can also teach you how to take complex large problems and break them down into smaller, more manageable pieces. Especially if you work on a large team where each team member has to build different components and have them all fit and work together. So because we live in a digital age and because it teaches good problem-solving skills, coding can definitely be a valuable skill to learn. But is there a reason not to learn coding? Before you send your child to coding school, you may want to first consider a couple of things. First, coding is very hard to be good at. I believe coding is a lot like writing, in that anyone can learn grammar and learn how to write, but very few of us can learn to write well enough to make a living doing it or to write a best-selling novel. Similarly, I think most kids can learn the basics of coding, but the reality is few of us at any age can expect to make a huge impact or a great living by writing code. Coding is very difficult. It takes hundreds and hundreds of hours to become truly good at it. In that sense, being an expert coder isn't much different from being, say, a concert pianist or an all-star athlete. It takes dedication and commitment. So if your child's strong suit isn't in mathematics or more of a technical nature, you may not want to push them too hard to become coders and compete with other kids who may be more naturally gifted at it. If your child's gifts seem to be in other areas such as music, art, or writing, you may want to consider pushing them to develop their talents in those other areas where they can be really good. Now, another reason I personally wanted to delay teaching coding to my own child is that, quite frankly, I wanted to minimize their screen time. Computer programming is obviously a screen-intensive activity. Kids today, like adults, can be easily addicted to screens, whether it's watching videos, social media, or playing video games. And the temptation is always there, not just for kids, but for adults as well, to become easily distracted when working in front of a screen. I know there's debate over just how harmful too much screen time really is. But I personally rather kids spend more time, at least when they're young, spend more time in the physical world, reading real books, doing math with pencil and paper, and playing and building things with physical toys like Legos, puzzles, and building blocks, before spending most of their waking hours, like I do, in front of a computer screen. So if you do have some concerns like I do about kids spending too much time in front of a screen, you may want to wait until your child has developed enough self-discipline to stay focused and has the ability not to get easily distracted before having them sit in front of a screen to solve very difficult problems. So those are just two things to consider before you have your child jump into coding. One, that it's very hard, and two, that it's a screen-intensive activity. But if your child does have the interest and the ability to stay focused, I definitely do encourage that they at least be introduced into the world of coding. And once you've decided that your child should learn how to code, the question then becomes, when should they start? At what age? As I mentioned before, I personally feel it would be better to get a solid grounding in mathematics first before getting into computers. Because to really understand how computers work, you really need to understand the fundamentals of at least binary math. We all know computers really only understand ones and zeros. They manipulate and store data as binary numbers. They store this data in variables and use systematic steps to solve a problem. These are all concepts that can be found in arithmetic and algebra. So if your child has mastered decimals and fractions, and they've begun to study algebra and have worked with variables and used equations to solve real-life word problems, then they are probably ready to learn how to write code to solve real problems. So if your child has a high aptitude for math and has the discipline to stay focused in front of a computer screen, then they are probably ready and have what it takes to be a successful programmer. But even if math isn't their strongest subject, the discipline of coding is still great training for learning how to solve problems. And it's a subject that every kid growing up in a digital age can benefit from at least being introduced to it. Our children are growing up in a world increasingly dominated by algorithms and software. And I hope this has been helpful in answering whether it's time for your kids to start help building this world by learning coding. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.